We filed a lawsuit against Camp Mystic and the Eastlands. It's just one of the worst tragedies I've ever seen. It did not have to happen.
Nope.
There were ample ways that they could have been saved. Camp Mystic had no evacuation plan. I mean, they were on the Guadalupe River, which is known as Flood Alley. Yeah. I've been out there and you can literally see the water line in the cabin, measuring it. It's 5.5 inches from the ceiling. So you had little 8-year-old girls on their bunk beds trying to keep their heads above the water, and they got washed out the window.
Welcome to the Jen and Mark podcast. We are here with the one and only Sam Taylor from the Lanier Law Firm. Hello, Mr. Taylor.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Jen, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Good.
Okay, so we're the Lanier Law Firm moving into Fort Worth. Why?
Back before I joined the Lanier Law Firm, I practiced law in Fort Worth for 10 years and owned a building downtown, and that's when I first started handling exclusively personal injury trial cases. We just thought about maybe expanding, our footprint in Texas a little bit, and thought it was a good idea because I have a lot of, contacts, a lot of relationships out in North Central Texas. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where my roots are. I tried a lot of cases out there, before I came to Houston. So it was a good opportunity for me to reconnect, and, I'm contacting lawyers, and, Fort Worth's a really good legal community. Really like it there. Enjoy practicing law there. So it's kind of a logical step for us.
You've been with the firm a while.
Yes.
And have done a bunch of different, you're a trial lawyer for
Right.
the firm. You've done a bunch of different litigations for the firm. Kind of like walk through your journey from where you started to where you're working on now.
Since I joined the Lanier Law
Yeah.
Firm? Yeah, so I joined the Lanier Law Firm in October 2014, and I joined the Asbestos section department, and I was basically just trying asbestos mesothelioma cases. Shortly after that, I became the managing attorney of the Asbestos section and remained in that role until last year. At that time, I've been board certified in personal injury trial law and done a lot of PI cases and other types of civil cases most of my career. And I just kind of decided I wanted to get back into trying cases more and back into the areas of law that I've been doing all my life. And so I approached management and told them I would like to, make that move, and they were very much for it. We were really looking for another attorney in the PI department at the time. So I was kind of a logical person to move into that role. That's what I had wanted to do for a bit. So that's where I am. And now I'm handling a wide variety of personal injury cases and some commercial cases for the firm. In fact, just yesterday I was in Nashville, Tennessee, mediating a case involving a commercial hailstorm claim.
Really?
Yeah. So we represent Lipscomb University in Nashville. And so I've been handling that case for about the last year, and actually was in a mediation in Nashville. Got in about midnight last night.
Well, you look great.
Oh, I don't know about that. But thank you.
So it's got to be fun, because asbestos litigation, it's so niche and a very specific skill set. Like the area of practicing law, there's a lot you have to know to be successful.
Right.
It's very deep, but you are doing many of the same motions over and over again. What's it like going back to doing a whole different variety of cases now with?
I kind of like that. My personality is a little bit such that I like variety and I like some different things. And that was kind of the way it was when I was in asbestos. I was initially traveling all over the country, meeting with new clients and trying cases. Then I moved into a little bit more of a management role. And I believe that was probably 2019 when I did that. And I enjoyed that role. I was managing a staff of about 15 attorneys and staff. And so I enjoyed that role, but was kind of ready to get back into more litigation. And I've tried a variety of a lot of different cases over my career. In fact, the very last case I tried before joining Lanier Law Firm was a capital murder trial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in Granbury, Texas. So I've tried child custody cases to juries. I've defended. I kind of cut my teeth doing insurance defense work. That's how I got a lot of trial experience when I first started. So hard for young lawyers to get trial experience, but I was fortunate in that I lived in a town where there was a claims office there, so we did all their defense work. So I had, I think, probably 24 or 25 jury verdicts within 5 or 6 years. Was able to get a lot of experience that way. So anyway, moving forward, I'm handling a wide variety of cases on my docket, car crash cases, airplane crash cases.
You're working a very popular one right now.
I am, sure am. I got started on that toward the end of last year, probably. I think I got retained on that in December of last year, the UPS plane crash in Louisville, Kentucky.
Is that your first airplane crash case?
I've worked on them before. It's kind of my first one as lead trial counsel, but we here at the firm have handled those cases before. But yeah, I've had some experience with those cases, but this one's particularly interesting.
Those ones that come up, it's super interesting because they don't happen very often.
Right.
Or I guess maybe they happen more often than we think, but.
Yeah, not really. I mean, it's fairly rare cases, and this one was just tragic. It should have never happened. And, I represent the widow of Dana Diamond in the case.
Was that one of the pilots?
Yeah, he was one of the 3 crew members.
Because of the 3 crew members, and there's like 13 people or something like that
on
the ground.
Yep.
The warehouse
Yep.
that crashed into.
The plane was taking. It was a cargo plane,
Yeah.
strictly MD-11 cargo plane, and it was taking off from Muhammad Ali Airport in Louisville, headed to Hawaii, and it had climbed less than 50 feet probably, and the left engine literally just fell off onto the runway. And it crashed into an industrial, some business and buildings, and yeah, there were people hurt and killed on the ground too.
That one's horrific.
Yeah, I'm going to try not to think about that one too hard
Yeah,
the next time. As I'm getting ready to hop in a plane and fly home.
The NTSB is still investigating that crash. In fact, they had the public hearing.
How does that work when you're working with like NTSB? Because you have your trial going on. They have like their investigation going on. Do they make that evidence available to you while they're doing it, or you have to wait till it to be done?
They don't make everything available to you, but about probably 3 weeks ago now, I think it was, 3 or 4 weeks ago, they had their public hearing on it in NTSB. So they had representatives from Boeing and the VT San Antonio, the maintenance organization that had worked on the plane, and UPS and GE. So they had different representatives there for the public hearing. And so the faculty, if you will, or investigators for NTSB had an opportunity to ask questions about the plane, the crash, and the different perceptions about what happened. So they're still fully investigating it.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, we have continued with our investigation of it. Like I said, their investigation is pretty tight to close to the vest, and but we've already hired an expert and who's done our own investigation, and we're in that process now. But the lawsuit's pretty new, and so we haven't taken any depositions or done formal discovery in the case yet.
Well, I'm excited to see where that one goes.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
That one got a ton of news coverage because it was obviously pretty wild.
Yeah. It looks like we've like I said, we've sued Boeing and the maintenance company that serviced the plane just maybe a month before the wreck.
Or lack of service.
Yeah, right. We'll know more. Yes.
Pivoting a little bit. So you're a pretty decorated trial lawyer. You've had a very successful career. You're working for one of the best, in my opinion, the best trial firm in the nation. How do you decide what to work on now? What gets you excited? I think if you call Mark or Kevin, you tell them you want to work on something, they're going to tell you no. But how do you decide, hey, this is where I want to spend my time to work on a case?
Well, as you know, we get thousands of calls a day at the firm. And frequently, if Mark gets a call and it's a case he wants me to work on, obviously I'm going to say yes, I'm going to work on it. We've opened the Fort Worth office. I've already gotten several, calls and referrals to that office. And of course, within parameters, I know cases that we're not willing to take and don't want to take. But they will let me, and if it's a case that's interesting to me, and I don't know that part about being a decorated trial lawyer. I don't characterize myself as that. I've tried some cases, quite a few cases over my career, but I do work for the best trial lawyer in the country, and that's Mark. Yeah. So we get an opportunity to work on a lot of high-profile cases. I'm working on one right now in Los Angeles involving an NBA player. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I get an opportunity to work on good cases.
Do you guys ever fight internally to see who gets to work on it?
No, not really. That hasn't come up yet. Now, mind you, I've only been back in the PI department for about a year and a half or so. But
is there a DIB system?
That hasn't come up yet. So, but we'll see.
I don't see you, Judd and Larry, scrapping anytime soon.
No. Judd and Larry are great lawyers, as are the other members of our team. So yeah, we don't have any of those issues.
So Fort Worth office. So you fully moved there now? Were you always there?
Well,
Or you were
I
here?
live in that area.
Yeah.
So I live in Stephenville, Texas.
Okay. I don't know where that is.
It's about 60 to 70 miles southwest of Fort Worth. And I've lived there most all my life. I actually went to school in Dublin, which is 10 miles away, a small town. But even when I worked in practice law in Fort Worth, I drove back and forth from Stephenville. And so now, I'm here, although I work here in the Houston office most of the time, I go in on the weekends. The Fort Worth office is going to afford me an opportunity to spend more time in that office. I don't intend, I'm probably not going to, my intention is not to make it a full-time office, but once the office starts taking off and growing, I'll be there more and more.
What advice do you have for like personal injury lawyers trying to cut their teeth into this industry? They want to be trial lawyers. They want to get that experience. What advice do you have for them to like honing their skills and getting those reps under their belts?
We have a lot of, interns and clerks that come through the office, and frequently they're assigned. Every year I have one or two that are assigned to me. So I get those questions often. One way, even Mark Lanier started out with a defense firm, and Fulbright and Jaworski. And so I tell them, if your passion truly is to try lawsuits, if you go to work for a big firm and you're just always carrying somebody's briefcase to trial and don't get to try the case, you're going to get a lot of good experience, but you're not going to get the trial experience yourself. So frequently I talk to young lawyers about maybe going into the district attorney's office and trying cases, prosecuting criminal cases for a while early in their career to get that experience. That's one way to do it. Or going to work, like I said, for a defense firm where they might be able to try some smaller car wreck cases, which is kind of the way I cut my teeth. And so if that's truly your passion, I think it's great to work with good lawyers like Mark, and there are other good lawyers around the country, and get great experience that way. But some of my best, the very first case I ever tried, I tried by myself.
Yeah.
You just you just kind of get thrown into the frying pan and go do it. And so I think that's a little bit lost on the younger lawyers these days.
Yeah, sometimes I had my old high school wrestling coach had a wonderful phrase. He's like, man, sometimes I'm going to throw a weight vest on you and throw you in the deep end. You're going to learn how to swim real quick or you're going to drown.
That's right.
I don't think it was appropriate for a high school kid to get that memo, but I got it real quick.
Yeah.
It was like, if you want to be good, you got to
go do it.
Go do it, whether you think you're going to be successful or not.
Yeah. The first case I ever tried was in Eastland, Texas, which is a little rural, small town out in central Texas. And it was an old courthouse. It was in July. Didn't have no air conditioning, had the windows up. And what's funny about it, so the elevator going up to the courtroom was a manual elevator. They had a person who stayed in there all the, full time to manually, operate the elevator. Is how old that courthouse was. What interesting thing about it was just a small insurance case, but the lawyer on the other side, it was his first case too. So two brand new baby lawyers trying their first case in
the
East
judge
Texas.
Probably like,
And fortunately, he's a great judge. It was Judge Wright, who went on to be the chief judge of the Eastland Court of Appeals, and just a good friend and great judge. So it was perfect scenario for a first trial.
What recommendations do you have for some of those newer lawyers to find like mentors to get that experience and guide them through that path? There's obviously people at the firm you look up to, and there's other people in the industry. You have mentors inside the firm at Lanier Law Firm. But what advice do you have for those?
I think that's very important. And we have some young lawyers, and I feel like I'm at that stage of my career where I'm serving as a mentor to some other younger lawyers in the firm. But wherever you go, you need to find someone, to talk to and go in and talk to them and tell them you're interested in learning, and just be a sponge, enjoy, and listen to the information. But don't be afraid to walk into a partner's office, because most lawyers will appreciate that, and don't be afraid to just go say, hey, I want some experience. I want to learn from you. Can I go and watch you? And so that's what would be my recommendation.
We got some requests from the fans to ask you about some mentors that we've heard about.
Okay.
Ernest Cannon came across my desk.
Yes.
He was a mentor for someone we know.
Yeah.
What I heard there's some stories.
Yeah, Ernest is a good friend of mine. Ernest lives in close to Stephenville, Texas, where I learned, and he moved to Stephenville many years ago. He had a young son who he put in the Stephenville schools, and Ernest is not only a good friend, he's a good guy and a legendary trial lawyer in Texas. You know, he was here in Houston for many years and literally in the Hall of Fame, Trial Lawyers Hall of Fame down here. And I consider him a good friend.
Oh yeah, Rick was like, ask Sam about.
Yeah, Ernest is not what I would call technologically savvy. Of course, I'm not either. But it would not be unlikely. Usually, if I get a call from Ernest, he say, "Where are you?" That means he needs me to come help him with something with his computer.
As someone who only spoke to him on a landline, I can confirm he needs to be. Yeah.
No, but you know, he's a good friend and he's been good to my family, and I'm truly indebted to him.
I'm curious to know how you are adopting new technologies. You know, you said you're not like the best adopter of a technology, maybe
That's
not
right.
on the forefront. How are you handling that? Because Mark's all gung ho AI. I talked to Sarah and Rachel Lanier. They're pushing it hard from their standpoint. But how are you having to reassess your skills in your process with new technology?
You know, I just kind of dive in and I do it. You know, I've done it. So when I've had early years of my practice, we didn't have any of this technology basically, you know. But I just dive in and I'm very involved with Claude, you know, and other AI platforms and learning how to use those to my advantage, you know, in terms of, you know, using them for document review or deposition review or any of the stuff like that. Now, I am far from, in fact, a lot of the girls in my firm or my staff, one time they put a sign above my door that said IT department. It's because I am not good at IT. That's not my thing. I have other strengths. That's not one of them.
Do you love Boodlebox as much as Mark does?
And I don't even know what that is.
Are you serious? I have access to
We might have
your
to cut
Boodlebox.
we
We
might
gotta
have to-
figure
we
that
might have
out.
to cut
sir.
it
Yeah, I need to learn. Help me.
We gotta get you in.
It was like, so my dad.
I've heard of it, but I've never did it.
My dad works for me, or works for us.
Yeah.
And we're pretty heavy. I would call myself an AI enthusiast. Like I'm try to be at the front edge. I enjoy playing with technology. My dad was like, "Hey, when you have a second, like, show me how to use Claude."
Yeah.
I was like, "Did you ask it how to use it?" He was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Just ask it, and it'll
He'll
tell you."
Yeah. It's an amazing tool. I have you know, put 300-page depositions in it and asked for a summary. I can have it in minutes, and then I'll take the summary and say, tell me inconsistencies of this person's testimony, and it'll list out the inconsistencies throughout and give me the page and line. So I mean, it's very useful.
It's a great tool to have in the tool belt for specific use cases that you got to learn. It's always like, ask around, learn how everyone else is using it, find the tips and tricks, and leverage it to save time. But from just the manual document review, it's just a huge time saver.
In this case that I was mediating yesterday, we had a big, for me, a very large, you know, document production, document review and we used some AI to help with that, and it really is helpful. Cuts down on the number of lawyers and staff that we have to get involved in doc reviews.
Yeah, it definitely speeds things up.
Yeah. Interesting story. I was in Ernest Cannon's office in Stephenville, actually, and it was probably July of 2014, and I had referred a case to Mark before I ever came to work here. It was a offshore oil well case in New Zealand, and I was in Ernest's office, and we had Mark on speakerphone talking to him about something. I don't even remember what it was, and Ernest knew, I think, that I was interested in doing something. At that time, I was working, you know, basically by myself in Weatherford, in the Weatherford office, and kind of doing a general practice. And I was interested in getting back into my specialty. And I had probably talked to Ernest about that, and so maybe he had run some interference with Mark, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But we're on the phone, and Mark said, "Hey, you want to come down here and try asbestos cases for us?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds pretty good."
Yeah.
And so we decided to do it kind of on a trial basis, you know, and so I came down in October, and then by January I knew that's what I wanted to do full time, and I joined as a full-time employee.
And you love a commute, so you're willing to drive from Stevensville to Houston.
Yeah, so I have an apartment here. So when I first did that in that summer of 2014, my youngest son was going to undergrad, and he was living with 3 other college students, and they had an extra room, and so I would just stay there when I'd come down here.
Love that.
He and his eventual wife and I moved to a different house closer to the office once I became full time.
Yeah.
And then they decided to get married, and I said, I'm not going to be that father-in-law that won't go away. So that's when I got my apartment. And of course, then he went to law school and clerked for us while he was in law school, and then he practiced law with me till he passed away 3 years ago. And so it was great being down here with him.
Yeah. Roommates.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's really
It was-
cute.
it
I
was-
didn't
it
know
was
that
good.
part of the story.
Yeah. We lived together for, I guess they got married in 2017, I think. So about
Oh,
3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. 2.5 years.
It's like from a commuting standpoint, people don't know. My former co-host John, who's not here,
Yes.
I went to go work for him. He used to be my boss, and I would commute into Orlando Monday morning. I'd fly in. I had an apartment there. I'd stay there till Thursday night, and I'd take the last flight home Thursday night. I'd work from home Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and rinse and repeat that. I don't have to go work for him.
Basically, essentially what I do, except I don't fly because I can't
Yeah.
fly into Stephenville.
Yeah.
It makes no sense for me to fly into Dallas and drive to Stephenville.
Yeah.
So, and it's, I can utilize that time, returning calls or whatever. So yeah, it's about a 3.5, 4 hour drive. So I'll go in on Thursday evenings or Friday evenings and then come back on Sunday afternoons.
You can get a driver so you can sit in the back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But with the Fort Worth office, I think that I'm going to be able to spend more time there.
I was gonna say, do you want to talk a little bit about anything about Camp Mystic?
Sure, glad to.
Okay, so tell us more about what the original suit against Camp Mystic, and then what happened, hours ago?
Yeah, I guess it was July of last summer, shortly after the Camp Mystic floods occurred. As you know, 27 young girls, all but 2 of them were most of them were 8 years old, one of them was 9 years old, and then 2 counselors who would have been in their late teens died in the floods. We were contacted, I don't remember exactly how long it was, 2 or 3 or 4 weeks after that, by an attorney from Dallas who was the grandfather of one of the girls who passed away. And so we started talking, and we weren't seeking these cases out at all. They reached out to us, and we had some Zooms with several, because they're all close.
Yeah.
And they would talk to each other, and we got on some Zooms and ended up getting retained by 6 of the families. We filed a lawsuit against Camp Mystic and the Eastlands. And, it's just one of the worst tragedies I've ever seen. It did not have to happen.
Nope.
These 27 8-year-old girls were the only Camp Mystic campers that died. I was just out there last week, Camp Mystic again for the 3rd time. There were ample ways that they could have been saved. Camp Mystic had no evacuation plan. I mean, they were on the Guadalupe River, which is known as Flood Alley.
Yeah.
They had no evacuation plan, no plan. These were the youngest girls in the camp, and they instructed them to stay in their cabins. And so all of these 27 were in either bubble-in cabin or Twins 1 and Twins 2. They instructed them to stay in, and they started evacuating others. Why they did that, I don't understand. They're required by law to have an evacuation plan and emergency plans for fire, wind, tornado, floods. They had none of that. It was a 1 sentence and a 1-page paragraph that said the girls in the flats stay in their cabins. And it just literally defies logic. And the tragic thing is they had notice as early as the afternoon of July 3rd that warnings of severe flooding was coming. And then by later that night, they even got warnings of life-threatening flooding levels. And they just did not do anything. And it's eventually, I've been out there and you can literally see the water line in the cabin, how high it got. And if you look at the petition I filed, I was in there with a measuring tape measuring it. It's 5.5 inches from the ceiling. So you had little 8-year-old girls on their bunk beds trying to keep their heads above the water, and they got washed out the window. It's just an absolute terrible tragedy. One of our clients was out there a few days afterwards and went to the cabin and saw her little girl's pajama top hung on the window where she went out the window. They were traumatized by the search and rescue or search effort, and they're traumatized to this day. And so we filed the lawsuit. The frustrating thing is, ever since then, Camp Mystic and their attorneys have been pounding the table about how this was just an act of God, and none of this could have been prevented, and no jury's ever going, we can't wait to get this case in front of a jury, and a jury would never find that we did anything wrong. And all this propaganda out there, then when the lawsuits get filed, they file a motion demanding arbitration. So they want to keep it out of the public courts into a secret proceeding so that there's no light on what really happened out there. And so we've been fighting that battle, trying to keep it in the open. Our clients just want accountability. They want answers. Why did our daughters have to die out there? They didn't have to. And we want to go through the discovery process, depose these owners and these operators and the counselors that survived. But they've shut all that down now by filing bankruptcy at 1 a.m. this morning. So that creates an automatic stay of the lawsuit while the bankruptcy is pending.
How long is that process going to take?
There's no way of knowing. We're still evaluating. I just found out about it at 7 o'clock this morning. We will engage Bankruptcy Counsel to give us some advice on going forward, but it could be months or more than a year. It could be a long time.
As a father of 2 little girls, I couldn't imagine what any of those families are going through and dealing with, like the aftermath of that.
They're just so in disbelief that how the efforts that they're going, that the chemistic's taking to try to keep this secret, keep it out of the public eye. They just want accountability. They want answers, and they want them held accountable, because we know, I've hired forensic hydrologists and investigators and meteorologists. All experts are already on the team. We know that this absolutely should not have happened. I went out to Camp Mystic probably 5 or 6 months ago, and I stood on the steps of Bubble Inn, one of the cabins, and there's a hill right over there where many of the girls who survived, that's where they went. And some of the cabins just adjacent to these cabins actually made it to the hill. So I said, I'm just gonna see how long it would take. I stood on the steps of Bubble Inn cabin and just walked slowly, a normal slow pace with my phone on, and I made it in 21 seconds. And there are trees up there they could have held on to. I mean, no plan. And not only that, right across from Twins 1 and Twins 2, less than 30 yards away, was a commissary that was 2 stories high. They could have gotten up on the steps or into the upper story of that. Within 100 yards was another building that had upstairs. I mean, the legislative committee, they had the final hearing on the joint session of the legislative committee. So the Texas legislature appointed a joint committee of the House and Senate to investigate this, and they appointed 2 investigators to investigate it. And the final hearing and report was last week, I guess it was. They determined that there were 39 places where these girls could have gone to higher ground within a matter of minutes had they just gotten them there. So like I said, we were brought into the case by Janie Hunt's grandfather. Janie Hunt was one of the young girls who perished. And her grandfather's a lawyer in Dallas, and that's how we initially got contacted on the case.
Well, I'm glad you're leading it. I think you're the right person. The Lanier Law Firm is the right team to finally get some closure for this family, hopefully, eventually.
And so we were the first law firm to file a lawsuit, and then there are other families that have other attorneys, other groups of attorneys. So there are 5 lawsuits pending. But like I said, at 1 a.m. this morning, they filed a bankruptcy petition.
I remember when this happened, one of my wife's coworkers, her niece was one of the daughters that passed away. And so when that happened, she flew down to Texas to try and search rescue, and quickly found out that it was not the case. And
one of the just heartbreaking stories that came out so they had a legislative hearing. So they had 4 moms to give statements. And the investigators who were investigating chose who they wanted to come do it or whatever. 3 of them were my clients. But one of the dads testified that they called them in. So once they started finding the girls, they called him in to identify his daughter. And you just would not believe what the girls went through in this raging water and hitting trees and rocks. And so the father goes in and he said, I think that's my daughter, but I'm not completely sure. And so he brings his father-in-law in and his brother in. They all thought that was probably their daughter. And 2 days later, they discovered by DNA evidence that it was not their daughter, after they had already taken her back. And then 2 days later after that is when they actually found his daughter. And maybe you can just imagine the trauma of having to go and identify your 8-year-old daughter has had her, I'm not when you can get into the graphics, but it's just awful.
How do you protect yourself and your own mental health in those kind of situations?
I think I do that because having lost a child, I relate to them a little bit. And I just want to help them. I'm on a text chain with the dads, and another lawyer in our office, a female lawyer that's helping with the cases on the mom's text chain. So we communicate. I've been communicating with them today
You've
about
probably been, that group message has probably been blown up today.
today. Yeah, I think Sarah told me she's had 72 text messages since the bankruptcy news broke this morning, and I've had quite a few from the dads. I'm a little. Sarah gets a lot of text messages.
Yeah.
I get not as many, but I think that's how. I feel for what they've been through, and I want to just try to help them. And so this has nothing to do for me about money or recovery or anything like that. It's about helping some parents who lost their little girls and didn't have to.
It's a heavy one.
Yeah, it's tragic.
I got all the feels right now.
I was gonna say I don't have children, but I remember reading about that and then seeing that you guys did take the case and how many little girls there were.
Yeah.
And it was just overwhelming.
I mean,
And
one of the counselors could have saved herself. And I mean, but instead she was trying to help save those girls, and she lost her life. I mean, she could have.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a teenager. She could have made it to the hill.
Yeah, she could have just ran.
Yeah, but she was trying to save them and lost her life.
How do you compartmentalize like these situations with all the other work you have to going on, whether it's husband dying in a plane crash because the engine fell off, someone's daughter's
Mesothelioma.
slow, painful.
Yeah.
You know what? You just have to. I mean, the way I handle it is I've been doing it a long time.
Yeah.
And you never lose that compassion for your clients. I mean, that's why I do it. That's why I'm in the business. But you find a way to focus on the job. What you have to do for them, and that's the way I do it.
Yeah, your job is to take care of your clients and get them justice and closure.
Right.
And you cannot be. Well, your emotions are involved. The best thing you can do for them is to make sure that you're 100% focused and delivering a good
That's
result
right.
for them.
And I can't say I'm not emotionally invested. I can't say that I'm not emotionally invested in these parents. I am.
Yeah.
You can't help it.
Yeah.
But you just have to separate that part of it and do the work. That's what I focus on doing.
I've seen you in action with clients multiple times. We've worked together for several years now. And if you can bring the same compassion that you did with like the Wells brothers and dealing with Jen and the other attorneys and kind of being a stabilizing force in that room, that's why you are who you are.
Yeah,
That's
I
why
appreciate
you
that,
do what you
and I
do.
try to be, and it comes. I mean, it's not. I don't have to force it or anything like that. There's a genuine care for the clients that I have. I just do my best to exactly what you say. Try to be a stabilizing force. Then, I can go in the road from Houston and to Stephenville and cry if I need to. But in front of the clients, you have to be there and be strong for them.
What other litigations are you have on your docket right now?
So I have a truck wreck case that's set for trial in October in Arkansas. Federal court in Arkansas. It involves a R&L company truck, which is one of the biggest trucking companies in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Our client was in a string of clients that were lined up at a construction area. This R&L truck driver with a history with over hours violations and other problems was coming along, and we have now proven that he was streaming a concert on his phone, watching it, and prior to that had been streaming some porn sites and other things.
Well, okay.
Ran into the back of this group of cars going 70 miles an hour and didn't brake, and injured one of the, we represent one of the clients. So that case is set for trial in October. It's a good case, and look forward to trying that up in Arkansas. I've handled other cases, car crash cases, autopilot cases. I just finished a case against a company in Fort Worth. It's one of the cases that I got referred to me was against a facility in Fort Worth for behavioral and drug problems for younger kids. Our client got in a fight, was jumped by some of the other patients and knocked his eyeball out. Sued the facility and finished up that case recently.
I'll just say I'm glad you have found a place where you can do a variety of different things and make yourself a little happy too.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I've known you for a long time, and this is what you deserve.
Well, I appreciate that. I feel very fortunate and honored to work for the Lanier Law Firm. It's a great place to work. I mean, you can pay lip service to the idea of it being like family, but it really is. Yeah, around there, and I have some of my closest friends or people I work with. I get to do the kind of cases I like to do. I get to work with people that I love and care about, and so I feel very honored and lucky.
Well, thank you for doing this.
Great.
Thank you, Sam. That was
Thanks for having me.
fantastic.
I appreciate it.
You got to get out of here, busy man.
Yeah.
Sam Taylor, the Lanier Law Firm.
My name's Sam Taylor. I'm a senior litigation counsel at the Lanier Law Firm in Houston and Fort Worth. I very much enjoyed my time here on the Jen and Mark podcast, and click like and watch them.